My name is Neela. I'm the founder of Wonder, and I've been a transformational facilitator full-time for the last 11 years of my life. I'm a Belgian Australian, normally live in the Blue Mountains in Australia, and have been traveling a lot with this work in the last few months and years. So currently in Cape Town, South Africa, and going to spend the summer in Belgium, where my mom lives. And this work has really taken me into many different places. So what I'm going to share with you today for me has been a technology that has worked in not-for-profits, in corporations. I have run women's circles, I've run retreats, I've run rites of passage trainings, and this technology of holding space, this art of holding space, really works in any scenario and any environment, which is why I'm excited to talk to you about it. So for me, this work has taken me to deserts and forests with boardrooms and all these different places, and I'll tell you more about it. So my intention for today is to share what the art of space holding is, to give you some tools that you can implement immediately in your life, whether it is as a leader or whether it is as a family member or in all of your relationships, but also to give you a few crucial puzzle pieces on your leadership journey of becoming someone who can hold impeccable space for the people in your community. I truly believe that this is the skill of our time. People that are in my world will know that I talk about this a lot. I really feel like we need more spaces for true connection, human connection, creativity, imagination, all of this stuff that is missing in our current culture. And also to help people contribute to the larger web of life in the way that, makes them feel alive, and to experience and to be inquiring about what their unique genius is. And when we create spaces that feel safe, where people can heal, where they can share, where they can be curious about who they are and what they can contribute, it will only serve everything. So this work for me feels really regenerative in this time. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. I have a presentation for you that I'm going to share because it will really help with what I'm going to say. So give me a minute. Okay. I love this photo so much because it's probably 2 years old, but the woman, you see me, I'm wearing the purple hats. And then I was facilitating a group here. This is in the Netherlands. And this is a group of startup founders. So just to show you, this technology works everywhere. And the woman that's sitting on the left is one of my best friends who is here with me in South Africa at the moment. I enticed her to come and meet me. So the agenda for today, we're going to spend about 60 minutes. You're all on mute. I invite you to stay that way. It's mostly going to be me speaking. But the beauty of these masterclasses, and I've done them a few times before, is I will try to get to the essence and get you through these 60 minutes and share as much information as I can and hopefully spark something in you. But after 60 minutes, you're welcome to stay back and we do a Q&A. And often that's where it gets really juicy. So please stay back, do a Q&A. We do maximum an hour. It sometimes goes longer, but that's where more information happens. And I so welcome you to ask me scenario-specific questions. So we're going to go through what it means to hold space, the levels of listening, what Circle is and why we need it now, in my opinion, what the role of the facilitator is in all of this, what a container is and why it matters, such a buzzword, the main tenets of community and culture building for our times, psychological safety, and then I'll give you some templates and tips for facilitation. And because you are here live, I will also share the template with you. And then I'll give you some next steps. There is a training that I run a few times a year that is really going deeper into all of this. So if you are feeling called at the end of this to really step into your role as a community leader and facilitator, then I'll share with you how you can do that. So what does it actually mean to hold space? I saw this meme the other day where someone was saying, I just want to hold more space. And it became this joke because I feel like it is in the field at the moment, in the culture, and people are like, what does it actually mean? So let me tell you. What it actually means, imagine that you and I are together in a room and I am holding space for you. Then it means that I am creating a safe, non-judgmental space where you can be fully yourself and you feel seen and heard and supported in expressing exactly what is true for you in that moment. So I am creating an opportunity for you to share where I will not offer you advice or judgment or give you a solution or fix you. It's an act of radical presence. It's an act of being. Me, as the space holder, I'm not doing anything else but holding space. Sounds easy, but it's actually quite hard. So you're offering a space for the other person to be safe to express without anything happening. That means that the facilitator or the person holding the space listens from the heart with the intention to understand, the other person, not to fix them, not to give their opinion, not to tell the person how they feel about it, nothing. Just, I am listening to understand. Also, you're giving the person the opportunity to share a complete story. And by doing so, they might get more information about what's really true for them. It inspires sovereignty. Let's begin there. Now, there's 4 levels of listening. And the first 2 are the ones we most commonly know in our day-to-day lives. Most people never go beyond level 1 or level 2. And just as you're listening, see what this is like in your life. So the first level is your passive listening. So you're kind of just moving amongst people and words come by and you're like, yep, 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 yep. And you're just confirming what you already know kind of thing. This happens a lot in organizations. I go into organizations and work with this framework of holding space and get people to level 3 and 4, and they're just blown away within one session. Because most people are used to actually speaking and not being heard, or just repeating the same information over and over again. The second level is factual listening. So you're basically in a transactional agreement with somebody. You're focusing on data exchange or facts. So you need something from the other person, you ask them a question, they give you the answer, you're like, okay, great, I can do this other thing now. Happens in meetings a lot too. But this also happens a lot with friends and family members. You know, it's kind of like, what's the weather doing? Oh, this, and how's this at school? And, you know, it's kind of, everything's kind of surface level, right? And some of that stuff is useful. Like we need those levels of listening to have transactions and to gain information from people. But it doesn't create a resonance or a level of deep connection with people. So what we're truly wanting to achieve when we are good space holders is to go deeper. And we want to reach level 3 and 4. Level 3 is empathic listening. This is where true connection begins. What happens when people listen empathically is that they start imagining what the other person's experience is like. So when someone tells you a story, you're listening and you're imagining, what would it be like to walk a day in their shoes? And because you are imagining this, so the imaginative capacity in your brain starts lighting up. You're starting to have feelings about it. And this is where the empathy comes in. And once you have feelings about something, you are moved, then you are more likely to be moved towards something. So you might take an action because of that, or you might change your mind about something, or you might remember something. When true connection happens in a group of people in this way, when we are moved by something, we remember it. When we have a connection with a person, it's very hard to dislike them. Think about a work scenario. It's really easy to say, oh, that person from accounting, they're such an asshole. Oh my God, always like this, blah, blah, blah. And we make up this story because we're in this transactional relationship. But if we're ever truly with that person and we know what's going on in their life, it would be really hard to keep up that story. The fourth level, which is where it gets really exciting, is generative listening. And when we drop into that level, first the empathy happens and people, I always say they drop in. It's a facilitator lingo, but people, you can feel it in a group if you've ever sat in a circle where this happens. There's a moment where people, they drop in, then they're in level 3. They start connecting and they start feeling things. And then you get to level 4, which is where things become possible. New things become possible because of what's happening. And people drop in so deep that innovation, transformation, healing can happen in a second. And things can shift that would have taken a person years or months to shift. Just because suddenly they have a revelation, and they have a revelation that's so meaningful for them and moves them so much that they can never go back to the old. And this can happen in a circle with people, on a retreat. It can happen in corporation. It can happen everywhere, where people suddenly are like, oh my God, what have we been doing? This makes no sense. And they get to the heart of the matter. But to get to the heart of the matter, you have to get through the noise. And you have to get through those layers of transactional speech. Often, and I'll give an example because I love running transformational retreats. I think of it as a lot of people are very busy with to-do lists in their lives. So they make a plan for themselves. Like they may think, oh, maybe what will make my life better is if I start going to the gym and I also do this. And they just add more things to their to-do list. But all the while, and it's kind of to wipe out some other existential thing that they have going on that they can't truly be with. But they think, well, what if I'm a little bit fitter? And what if I feel more successful in my job? And what if I have the car that I've always wanted, and all these other things? And so they start doing that stuff. But then they come to a place like this for 2 days and they're like, oh, but the actual thing, the thing that really matters is this other thing. And it's this one thing that's hard to be with in day-to-day life because there's no space to actually allow for it to emerge. But this is what happens at level 4, is that the truth that lies deeper at the core can actually emerge. And it can be a truth that is helpful for an entire group of people or just for one person. And so a good space holder knows how to create the congruent conditions for level 3 and level 4, which for most people is rare. And so creating a space like that, even for an hour or for 2 hours, is life-changing for most people. The way that we know how to do this best is by holding a circle. It's the oldest technology that we have for human connection, and I love calling it a technology because it's a blueprint that we've had around for thousands of years, and we're remembering it now. And there's never been a better time for this. A circle is an ancient, universal way of gathering where every voice matters. There's no hierarchy. It works in every setting. What happens inevitably in a circle is that there is deep listening, mutual respect, and human connection. One person speaks at a time and they complete their story. They're not interrupted. There is no offering of advice or judgment or analysis that happens. The facilitator, and we'll talk to the role of the facilitator later, is not a teacher. They don't interrupt people to tell them what they're supposed to do with their lives. We let people be the leaders of their own experience. Why does it matter in this time? It's an hour is not enough, but people feel chronically lonely and disconnected at work and at home and in their communities. And most people will tell you that what they really crave is belonging. Belonging and becoming are two primal psychological needs, as important as food. And when people don't feel like they belong, they would rather belong to a community that is unhealthy for them than to not belong at all. You see that in adolescence a lot. We don't have good systems in our culture to be with adolescents and help them through their rite of passage so that they feel like they truly belong to the community that they were part of or are part of. And so they go look for it somewhere else. We spend a lot of time on our phones. I think we've gone to the extremes of that, and now we're looking for a way back. There's so many, I work with organizations and they spend their whole day in meetings. And I just don't really understand what is actually being shared here. Is this being facilitated well? Is there meaningful connection here? We're no longer in a time either where knowledge is power, because everything is available. You just have to open your phone and ask a question and you'll get the answer. The true skill of this time, or what we truly need, is human creativity, imagination, deep connection. For people to find again what their unique role in the ecosystem is, becoming. And offering spaces where people can have their voice heard, where they can share, where they can explore it, so that they can get clearer on who they are and what they came here to do and what they can contribute. And I really believe that this work, the leaders of this time are really contributing to, by offering these spaces where more imagination is possible and connection and creativity, that we are contributing to regenerative culture, like regenerating our nature and culture, because there is an erosion there. I think more people are waking up to this idea of, wow, we're operating in this system that's really not very life-giving. You know, so many people are burned out and not very passionate about the work that they do. And then innovation is never really in service of life or culture. It's in service of people making more money. So there's this erosion that's happening, and how can we create leadership and spaces where people can get excited again about creating systems and practices that are life-giving, where people can feel really alive in what they do and deeply connected to other human beings and happy to be here. You know, I'm starting to get warm ears, but I get excited. But I'm move to the next thing. This tool of Circle creates authentic communication, so people feel heard. And I have this experience continuously. I probably do about 15 circles a month in different environments. So online, I do them in person with people. I run retreats, trainings, etc. And there is always one person who sits in a circle for the first time and cries. I was that person 11 years ago when I sat in a circle for the first time. I just could not believe it. My system could not handle it. To sit in a space and feel heard, to be able to finish your story, and for no one to tell you what you're supposed to do with that. Where you can feel like you actually speak the truth. And that the worst thing that you think would happen if you do that doesn't happen. It's incredibly healing. Often people have been sitting on a story, something that they've never shared with anyone. And they think that when they share it, the worst thing will happen. And so just sharing that one thing and just receiving love in response and empathy is life-changing for people. Because we think that when we share something, someone's going to talk over us or tell us what to do or judge us, or the worst possible thing will get excommunicated, whatever. And in these places, the opposite happens. And often just sharing the story in a space like that is what people need to break through the one thing that's been holding them back. It doesn't need 5 years of, sometimes one moment can change everything. These spaces, when they're held well and intentionally, create trust and safety and empathy. Very lacking in our time. My personal growth has been the strongest or the fastest in group environments. And I can see that now all the time, how fast people grow and break through barriers and have revelations and move from intrinsic motivation just because they are in a well-facilitated space. It's something we've known to do as human beings for hundreds, thousands of years. And somehow in our time is not how we do it. We're very individual. There's this cult of individualism, and I don't think it serves. So what happens as a human being when you're in a safe space is not only do you have a lot of revelations, you feel seen and heard, you experience love, you're in this field of resonance and all these other, you feel like you belong and feel safe. There's no downsides really. The other thing is that typically in a space like this, because it's a space of truth, there will also be discomfort. There will be things that are shared that are hard to hear. And that's another thing we're not great at doing in our culture is receiving information we don't like or feeling uncomfortable. And what do we do when we encounter something that makes us uncomfortable? We can distract from it so easily. We go on our phone or we go to the fridge. There's a way that we deal with that, which is avoidant. We live in an avoidant culture. But in order for our capacity as a human being, our own self-leadership to expand, we have to be able to sit in not knowing, discomfort, all of those things. And when people sit in a space like this, they realize, oh, someone shares a story or an opinion I don't agree with, and nobody died. And so over time, their system capacity and their sense of safety increases. That's on a personal level. On a group level, the same happens. If you work with a group over an extended period of time, like a corporation, then there might be, in the beginning, a sense of lack of safety, But over time, people have to sit in the discomfort and the truth, and they get used to doing that. So the group capacity and system capacity increases to be able to hold truth and failure and moves through that a lot quicker. And it changes the culture exponentially and really fast. It's amazing, actually. There's more creative ideas, more collaboration, and it happens automatically because we care for each other. Because it's really hard to project something onto a person when you start to know them and you care for them. These spaces are amazing for people to have different perspectives and new ideas and bold ideas and to be emboldened in sharing them. People can explore parts of themselves that they've forgotten or banished or didn't even know they had. It's also the second fastest way to learn something, because the fastest way to learn something is to experience it yourself. But the second fastest way to learn something is to hear a story of someone else's lived experience that moves you so that you'll never forget. And then when you are in that situation yourself, you know what to do. And this is incredible for sharing intergenerational wisdom, for example. because when you share data with a person, it doesn't really hit home so much. But when a person hears a story of lived experience and it moves you, you'll always remember it. And then when you're in a scenario where there's elements of that, you're like, oh, this is like that story I heard. It's really, really clever. I think the data says that you're more likely, 27 times more likely to remember a story that moved you than a set of data. And just if you think about this in your own life, very often we are intrinsically motivated to change something about our lives. When does that happen? For me, it happens when I hear a story and something moves me. I have to be moved. And what happens in these spaces is you're moved. It's impossible not to be moved. So I hope you're catching my drift by now. This is not a normal gathering. It's different from a meeting. So what makes it different? It makes it different because there is a facilitator. There's a person. My inkling says it's you because you're curious about it and you're here. And you might already be facilitating, or you might already be a leader in your community. So it requires a facilitator who can hold the conversation and who can share the intentions of how is this going to work. So even if you are two people and you create an intentional space for listening and sharing, that you say, this is how we're going to do it. These are the intentions behind this conversation. This is how I will hold myself, and this is how you will hold yourself. Do we both agree? Yeah, okay. And then as the conversation starts to happen, if that starts to get a little bit leaky, like maybe those agreements are starting to not be as strong anymore, then as the facilitator, you'd be like, hey, we had an agreement to do this. Let's go back to that intention. That is the role. It's the same for a facilitator of a circle or a group. You are the person that says, welcome, this is the intention of this gathering. This is how we're going to run it. These are the agreements. Do we all agree? Yes? Wonderful. And then once everyone has agreed, if there are people that in the course of that conversation start doing other things or starting to breach the agreements, you bring them back to the agreement. It's very simple, really. And that's what the facilitator does. And a few of these agreements, what I want to share is in the Circle Facilitator Training, we go through this in a lot of detail. And I will share all the agreements that I think are absolutely necessary. Like these are the non-negotiables for every gathering that you want to have generative conversation, scale empathy, and all of those things. And I also want to give you the opportunity to create them and tailor them to your audience. So I've shared a few here that are options, but there's more detail to that. So I wanted to share that. But for example, one person speaks at a time and everyone listens, and we let that person finish their conversation. We don't interrupt, we don't analyze, we don't judge. We let the person finish. We also don't go and hold them or do anything with them. They get to have their sovereign space. Sovereignty is really important. A circle has clear intentions and agreements. There's some universal ones, and there will be some tailored ones to your community or audience. Everyone is equally participating. There's no hierarchy. Everyone in the circle is an active witness of what is happening, but they're not offering advice. They're offering their presence. The people that are there are consecrating their attention on what is being said. It is so powerful to be witnessed in that way. The focus is on listening, not speaking. That's a funny one, I think, because sometimes people are nervous when they come to a circle for the first time. And I always say in the beginning, just notice that there's 20 of us here. So you'll be invited to speak once if you want. It's not mandatory. So see if you can leaned into a bit more comfort that you're actually here to be a good listener, not to be a good speaker so much. What happens in this place once we create the door and people are in and we set the container as a facilitator is that we're in the sanctity of, I call, sacred time. It doesn't feel mundane or profane anymore because we go beyond level 1 and 2 of listening and move into level 3 and 4 of listening. And everyone can feel that. I cannot tell you how often I have facilitated a circle of just 1 hour or an hour and a half with people I've never met before, and they will tell me it was life-changing. They have a different experience of time. The Greeks had 2 words for time, chronos and kairos. Chronos is chronological time. I always say dentist appointments, your Google Calendar, all of those things, when you have to be somewhere. But there's kairos time, and kairos time is qualitative time. And it feels timeless. When you are in a circle, often it will feel like you have been there for 3 days and it's been an hour, or you've been there for 3 hours and it felt like 5 minutes. And you'll find that a lot of moments in your life that are meaningful will have that timeless quality. And we, in our current culture, don't have a lot of practices anymore where we intentionally create kairos time. Everything's mundane. That's why everyone has an endless to-do list. There's not a lot of meaning. But when we sit like this together and we listen and we consecrate our attention, and the space is held in a container like that, magic happens and time feels timeless. And very often we will forever remember that moment. What a privilege to be able to to be the purveyor of that for people. And something else that happens, this is my advice or like my experience of how to create these places that are truly impactful, meaningful for people, is that people get to speak from their own lived experience. They share stories, not ideas. So the invitation of the facilitator is to become someone who is excellent at crafting beautiful questions that elicit emotion and lived experience from people, so that people speak from a place of, this is what it was like for me. And we are imagining it as the field, as the listeners, and therefore we are being moved and something is moved between us. So we don't ask people to share what their opinion is about something, or we don't get people to hypothesize. Typically, when we hypothesize and we say, I think it's really important to do this, or blah, 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 we stay on level 1 or 2 of listening, and that deeper thing doesn't happen. And you'll find that a lot of facilitators talk about the field. And the field is what is created between people when they start dropping into that deeper layer of listening, and they start having empathy and feelings. There's a resonance that happens. You can feel it. And that intelligence that is created between people is a lot greater and smarter than the facilitator or some of the individuals that is there. I always say the facilitator facilitates the feel and is a guardian of the container, and it creates that form so that the flow can happen and that intelligence can present itself and it can emerge through the people. And it's timeless. And it is full of revelation and epiphany and all of those cool things. But that happens through sharing of stories, not ideas or beliefs. It's really a place of truth, not greatness. So when you are a good facilitator and you set a good container and you ask beautiful questions, people will be compelled to tell you the truth. And the feeling of truth is so powerful. We all know what it feels like when we hear the truth. We're moved. It's not about telling a great story. A facilitator knows how to elicit a good, real story. and to let people, so that the masks come off. So people don't feel like, oh, what am I going to say when it's my turn? It's got to be a good story, because that doesn't create that sense of connection. It's like, how do you get people to tell the truth? That's the role of the facilitator. That's what serves. So what is a container in this context, and why does it change everything? I think I've already explained it a little bit. But in this context, it means it's the physical space. So whether it's online or in person, in the training, we go through this in detail, like how do you set a container online versus in person, where all the different elements. I think I talk about this for a whole hour in one of the videos, and you get a 80-page manual to go with it. But in essence, the container is the space that you set, the form, the structure, the technology, the blueprint, so that the flow can happen. And without that, people will not feel safe. And it's very unlikely that you will reach those deeper layers. So it's the structure that holds the magic. And it is what the room looks like. For example, in person, you would always have a place that no one else can walk through that place. It would be the same online. And you would ask people when they meet online and you sit in circle to not sit in public space, for example. That's containment as well. The room looks a certain way. Ideally, we sit in a circle. The agreements that are shared, and again, these change based on the scenario, is one person speaks at a time. You don't have to share. There's no fixing, no interrupting. We share from lived experience only. We don't give advice. We don't say what we think is true. We share what we know from our experience. One very important container agreement is confidentiality. Whatever happens in this space stays in this space. It's contained. You don't get to go out and talk about it outside of this space to your partner or your family. You come in here and you honor confidentiality. We honor sovereignty. Means that people are responsible for their own experience. And the beauty of that, and I think one of the most powerful things about this practice, is that people have their own revelations in their own time because of these agreements, because they feel safe, because they're listening with more attention than they typically give things. And also these spaces constellate just so that the right person is there for you, that has the story that you need to hear, that was going to shift the thing that you need to shift. It's unbelievable. But people sit and listen, and they distill the wisdom from the field that they need for their own lives. And it's not the role of the facilitator to do that for them. I think this is really crucial. The facilitator is the person that facilitates the field and the container and is fierce and kind and strong and grounded and present. But they're not the guru. They're not the person that's going to tell the other person, oh, I see what your pattern is. This is what you should be doing. That's not what this is. People get to be in this space, and through the stories that are being shared and through what is constellating in the field, they get to distill exactly the medicine they need in that moment. And that is what is life-changing, because the motivation to change comes from intrinsic motivation, not because someone told them. They finally get it. And it happens like that. That's why I say these containers are timeless. People have revelations and inspirations that change their lives within an hour or an hour and a half. The facilitator and the container also means there's time and integrity, and I'm going to look at time now. Okay, 43. But as the facilitator, because you open a space of Kairos time, it's timeless, you are responsible of also guarding the chronos time. And it's difficult because everyone else loses their sense of time. So you are somebody that keeps it contained and makes sure that you do finish on time. And people feel safe with you because you said you were going to finish at 8 and you finished at 8, not at 9:30. So it's your job to have one foot in and one foot out. So you're the person that is the guardian of time and contains the space so that the flow and the magic can happen. I've just spoken to this, but so the facilitator is not a guru. The space holder is not a teacher. It's more a guide on the side. So they set and protect the container, facilitate the field, models presence through time, through energy, the way they move. They interrupt gently, bring people back to the agreements. They're the guardian of those agreements. So when people start talking, for example, or they offer advice, the facilitator is kind but fierce and says, I'm sorry, but the agreements were something else. It's one of the greatest privileges of my life. I can't imagine doing anything else. It is so incredibly beautiful to be in service of this. And of course, it also requires somebody who is willing to do their own inner work. And it means sometimes seeing very obviously what the truth for someone is and not telling them, but letting them find out themselves, or not projecting your own stuff onto other people. Not being reactive, just being in service of what wants to unfold. I always think of space holders as people who are in service of community and interpersonal connection, and also the larger web of life as a result of that. And therefore, it's important to know how you build strong culture and community. And some of these skills, I think we've also lost in our culture. So I'll take you through some of them. Like, say if you were somebody right now that is leading a group of people, or you're a coach that has a program that is running, or you're building an online community, you might be a sports coach, whatever you're doing that is leading people or working with people, this will be invaluable. And of course, sitting in circle does all of these things. It's a tool that works and facilitates all of these things. That's why it's so epic. So one of the things is listening and checking in. So say you have a team of people. I'm going to use a corporation as an example. I have worked in corporations where people were never like, hey, what's up with you? How are you doing? There was never any space for that. And a lot of people never really do that, even in their families, to just listen to each other without interrupting and checking in. What's alive for you? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? What is moving you in the world right now? And have a cadence of doing that every week, every 2 weeks, whatever. Checking in, talking about the present state of being of a person, and having an intentional way of doing that where people feel heard. Then storytelling, having places where people can talk about their lived experience, typically in the past, that serves the larger web of relationship, so that people can learn from the wisdom of other people who are older or have more experience or have traveled or whatever. Storytelling. We've had this for generations. It's wild that we don't have this anymore. It's always been part of our culture. Every single indigenous culture centers this for a reason, because it works. Creating shared experiences that are meaningful. Ritualizing things. Building things together. Going places together. Shared experiences, when they're designed well, like retreats, for example, or a good offsite with the team, or a family outing, they are meaningful and they also create timeless time. And when there's timeless time, people are moved and they remember. And then you feel part of something. I used to work with corporations and be like, so what do you do for your culture? And they'll be like, oh, on Friday we have a cheese platter. And I'd be like, sounds thrilling. I don't know. What do you do? Do you all stand around and eat cheese? I mean, like, people do things that don't have a lot of meaning for them, you know? And how do you create moments that people actually remember, something that they want to come to? It's not that hard. To create community, you want people to have a joint vision, something that they're all excited about. Imagine a team, but also a family. Like, where do you want to get to as a family? That's not a crazy question to ask. What is your vision? How do you want to be in a relationship together? Do you want to travel together? What's something that you can all get excited about? And what's everyone's specific role in that? People are hungry and thirsty to know what they can contribute. And if they are part of a joint vision, like that's why sports teams are so formative for young people, because they have a joint vision. They're all working towards something. And if they're being coached correctly, then they all know exactly what their role is in that collective. It's so powerful for them. Communities don't really do that so well. Corporations neither. Another one is recognition. So having rituals of recognition, where when someone is contributing uniquely, that they're celebrated for their genius and what they contribute to the community. So that people feel like the one thing they contribute is recognized and they feel motivated to stand in that fully and really live their purpose. And then finally, an important one that we don't do very well either is repair. A willingness to repair, healthy ways to resolve conflict. Because our attention span is so low and we're not very good at sitting with discomfort. Repair is something that we don't know how to do well because it means sitting in discomfort for a lengthy amount of time and listening and being willing to hear things that you might not agree with or feeling hurt. But as a community, having tools, Circle is a tool that you can use for repair. You can use this tool for recognition. You can use this tool for dreaming and visioning. You can create retreats, shared experiences, storytelling, listening. All of these things work with this tool. But to have a way that you are in repair that is facilitated where people listen to each other. It's not that hard. And then psychological safety, I wanted to touch on because I feel like I get this a lot when I work with clients. They're like, we want psychological safety. And I think it's misunderstood. So I want to touch upon it. It's not a big part of the training either. I feel like psychological safety is something that is implied when you know how to use this tool well. And a good facilitator, you're not there thinking about how can I create psychological safety? It automatically happens if you create a strong container and you know how to guard it and you know how to ask the right question in real time, then it's implied. And a lot of the scenarios I think that people are afraid of when they start facilitating, it's like, what happens if a person does this? Or what happens if, someone re-traumatizes, or what happens is, and the thing is, if you learn the tool, then those things never happen or hardly ever happen. And so psychological safety is something that is a result of creating a strong container and being a good facilitator. And I'll tell you what it's not, though. So it's a shared belief held by members of a team or a community that it's okay to take risks, express ideas and concerns, basically to speak the truth without fear of retaliation or consequences. Or what will happen to them if people find out that ... And specifically in spaces community spaces, I feel like it's misinterpreted. And so there's this fear around, oh my God, we're doing it wrong. And therefore, let's not do it at all. And so there's so much cushioning happening around authenticity and speaking the truth. And I don't think it serves us, really. I actually think that what we need as a culture is more truth speaking and deeper listening to each other. And that means being able to sit with more discomfort. I think we often mistake lack of safety for just feeling uncomfortable because someone is sharing something that we don't like or we don't agree with, you know? So it's not toxic positivity or being nice. It's not eliminating all risk and trying to make everyone comfortable. You cannot. It's impossible. If you want to be a transformational facilitator or a leader that holds people through transformational times and does it well, you cannot eliminate all risks and make everyone comfortable. It is not a thing. What you can do is create congruent conditions for people to become increasingly more comfortable with discomfort. My friend who's here with me calls that we put the disco back in discomfort. And that's what it is. It's like people become more comfortable with it over time, and then the capacity increases. So you're not preventing the unknown, the uncertainty, or avoiding conflict. You're guiding people into spaces where they become increasingly more apt to be in conversation with that, and that's where the magic can happen. So if you are considering becoming a transformational facilitator and you thought you could do it without any conflict or risk, then unfortunately, I have bad news for you. That's not what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of this, and it's the most beautiful thing that you can ever do. And it's also going to take so much of your own personal negotiating and holding and all of those things. I think this work, I cannot imagine doing anything else. It is such a great privilege. I love it so much. And it's my life's work. And I also am challenged by it all the time, and that will never end. So just sharing that too, but it's beautiful. So I'm going to share a quick circle template with you, and we're almost at the end, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe. And then there'll be some time for Q&A. So if you want to share a circle and you would like to do this with your family or with your friends, you want to hold a men's circle or a women's circle, there's a simple template. In the training, we go through a way more detailed one with all the container agreements, and so that you have that technology really tight in that structure. So the reason I'm saying that here is I want to give you the template, but I also want to say, if you are someone who wants to hold big transformational spaces, please consider getting proper training for that, because you also want to be trauma informed and all of those things. And this is a basic template that you can use in a group of people that you know, or with your family or with your team, and it will always work. But if you're thinking of doing work that goes deeper, and please consider taking your development a little bit further than this. So a simple template of a circle gathering could be, you welcome people, you have an intention for your gathering. Say, we're gathered here today because whatever the purpose for the gathering is, there always is one. You share the intention. You make sure everyone is enrolled, they have somewhere to sit, of course, all of those things. And there might be a grounding practice. So a practice that gets people to arrive in this place, meaning that, hey, we're all here together now intentionally. Let's do a 1-minute meditation, some movement, whatever you want to create, so that people really make the distinction between the time before and the time that they're in now. It gives them an opportunity to land, and you start creating that timelessness. It's like, hey, you were doing something before. We're here now. Welcome. This is the purpose of the gathering. Let's take a moment to land. And then you share the agreements. You say, one person speaks at a time. It's confidential. You don't have to share if you don't want to. This is how the flow of the conversation is going to go. We start here, then this person. So you guide the conversation. with the container agreements. You might light a candle in the middle if you have a center to open the field. And then you start with the first question. And the first question for me, this is what I have learned after having done, I say more than 10,000 hours of this, is the first question is a presencing question. How are you right now? What are you bringing with you right now? What is alive for you in the present moment? A check-in. And in the training, we'll give you 100 questions that you can use, but it could be something like, what's alive for you today? What did you notice on the way here? What brought you here? What's the story, like the chapter in your life that you're in right now? What's something epic in your life and something not so epic in your life right now? So a question that presences people in their body in the present moment. And then you can go into wisdom sharing. So a moment of lived experience about something, a prompted story. Tell me about a time in your life where this happened. Tell me about this. Really elicit a good story so that people are moved and the field forms. And you can do many rounds of this where people are listening and they're being moved. And you'll be so surprised as to what happens. And after that, people get to share. What did they hear? What was alive for them? Witness round, I call this. It's called a wisdom round. Sometimes it's called a weaving round. What did you hear? What are you taking from this? What was shared that moved you? And it gives you as a facilitator an opportunity to also see, like, what are people taking from the field? And then you can close. It can be a ritual closing. It can be, depend on your environment and your people. You always tailor it to the community and you close the circle. That's it. That's a really simple template. As the facilitator, you are someone who is really grounded and prepared. In order for people to feel safe, your demeanor you have to be present. And you have to share the agreements, be really clear on them, and also guard them with your life. So if someone oversteps, you immediately interrupt, you bring them back. When you are sharing, and I always recommend that you do share as a facilitator, you model the way that you want people to speak. So something we practice in the training is becoming a better storyteller. Focusing on your tone. You're always listening for clues. What are themes that are coming up, that are being repeated? We practice this in the training every week. What was the theme? What are you here? What was here? What did people say more than once? Because that's the intelligence that's there. It's constantly showing itself to you and you're trying to read it. I think one of the most important tips is that you are a guide and not a teacher. So you're guiding people. You're not teaching, you're not being the guru. Very important. People always encircle, one of my agreements or invitations is always speak from the I, start with I. So they speak from their own lived experience. And stories are more important than thoughts. So it's kind of like people can go into, and then we always do this and we always do that, and you lose them because they go up in their heads. So you want to bring them back into story. I was somewhere. This is how this was for me. This is how I felt. You're an excellent timekeeper. It's a very unfortunate role. As facilitator, I hate it, but I'm really good at it. And you become really good at it over time because people need to feel safe, and excellent timekeeping is part of that. And your presence is your most important skill. So these are some tips. In a minute, I'll share a PDF with you, and most of the things I spoke about will be in there. So thank you for being here live and receiving this, and then I'll give you some more stuff. So I'm 3 minutes over time. I feel like I'm doing well. So I'm going to take you through. In a minute, I'll share the PDF, and you'll also have time to do Q&A. They're always really juicy, so hang back. You can start sharing your questions in the comments if you want. If you feel really sparked by this conversation and you're like, I really want to step into my next step as a leader and facilitator, then I have a training, a Circle Facilitator Training. It starts on the 19th of May. And it is really teaching you all the skills we talked about today. It's very comprehensive. People very often tell me that it's the best training they've ever done. I feel very confident that it is an aggregation of everything you need to know to start facilitating in a really grounded way. And it will teach you how to set a container properly. It will also teach you how to set a container for your specific audience, tailored to your community, and to read the field and work with the emerging field. This to me is crucial. I don't want to give you just a 90-page manual, which you'll also get, but I also want to teach you how do you work in real time with what is emerging in the field so that you never have to be afraid of what might happen. You always know what to do, and you know how to craft the perfect question for the scenario that's right in front of you. Because very often, as a facilitator, some of you might know, you rock up to a place and you have something prepared, but as it turns out, people check in and they're in a completely different space, and you have to take them somewhere else because that's what serves in that moment. So it's learning how to do that. That's actually the most important skill. And really guarding that container with your life so that all of those scenarios that most people are afraid of, like what happens if this happens, what if that happens, I will tell you now, if you learn how to do this well, it will rarely happen. Often people say, what happens if this? And then I have to think, because it hasn't happened to me in 7 years, that specific scenario. And I facilitate all the time. And it's because my structure and my form is so rock solid. And that's what is most important to learn. So you'll learn how to set the container, how to guard the container, how to read the field, how to craft the questions, and everything you need to know so you can confidently get started and also facilitate transformation. That's what I'm most passionate about. And the way that the training works is you get videos with all the theory, you get the manual. So everything theoretically will be there, but once a week, we meet at this time every Tuesday, starting on the 19th for 6 weeks, and we experience it live. So we sit in circle and I show you through transparent leadership why I do what I do and how the emerging field works, and you get to feel it and you get to experience it and also contribute to it. And then there will be 2 times that we meet where you facilitate and receive feedback. So it's a very, the training is very connected. You are in the field and you really experientially learn it. I don't think this is a skill that you can learn just through theory. You have to be in it. You have to experience it. And the bonus is that you get to meet epic people who are also all very passionate about this work and creating generative community. I always say this is a training for people who are visionary leaders and who really care about regeneration, and it shows. Like the people that meet, and as you can tell, you're everywhere in the world, they get to make lasting connections, and that's pretty cool.